You know, chat, it's been a long time since I've done one of these intros. What? After seeing a couple of videos about people analyzing what it means for characters to be the strongest, specifically Johnny Star and Salad Saiyans videos, go and check those out. Those are great videos, by the way. I decided to talk about a manga that I believe has a not only unique, but also great interpretation of what it means to be the quote-unquote strongest. Aside from Goku, Gojo, or All Might, I feel like Saitama is probably the most popular character in that quote-unquote strongest archetype of a character. He's also a character that gets misrepresented a lot, so I figured why not kill two birds with one stone and not only talk about Saitama's ideology and how it not only changes over the series, but how one's take on this archetype of the strongest works so well. You see, at the beginning of One Punch Man, Saitama was nothing more than the average human. After saving a kid from some crab monster and understanding that he can use his power to fight villains, he decided to train and do hero stuff super casually. That thrill he felt fighting a villain after nearly dying himself allowed him to find a real purpose instead of settling down as some random businessman. But after becoming too strong, he now found himself in a pretty lonely position since no one can ever satisfy him. Every threat that seems strong and claims to be the strongest and they finally achieve their goal, Saitama slaps them away with ease and reality, showing us a contrast between himself and the villains he's fighting. For example, BeefCake and Carnage Kabuto's very existence is to be the strongest. They want to be superior to everything around them, while Saitama is someone who believes this power is kind of a curse. Since yes, he, unlike BeefCake and Carnage Kabuto, have actually become the strongest, but now he must face that reality that no one could really stand at the top with him. And we see the villains that try to relate to him simply just not being as strong as Saitama. Now, granted, things get better when Genos enters his life and shows Saitama a better view of being a hero, but Saitama flat out says to the civilians in City Z after the meteor event that he believes what's best for the people and he does not care what they think, showing that Saitama obviously needs to go through a lot more maturity as a hero. But that's when characters like Genos, Bang, and King allow Saitama to learn not only more of being a hero, but how to carry this strength and to give the world a better tomorrow. Genos is someone who constantly improves every day, and despite losing a lot, I mean, he gets clowned on for this, he always gets back up and never gives up. For example, in the fight with Elder Centipede, he is aware that he is fighting probably one of the strongest monsters. However, he understands from not only his past experiences earlier in the season, but also witnessing the ridiculous strength of Saitama, he understands inevitably if Genos wants to reach his goal, he's going to have to fight threats like this. And even despite being the weakest person there, due to his ingenuity, he's able to do the most damage to Elder Centipede, before Saitama obviously one-shots him. And speaking of the Elder Centipede fight, another person who was there was Bang, who not only taught the only person who came close to understanding Saitama's strength, that being Garou, but after initially trying to stop him from becoming the strongest, he decides to give all that up and instead try to reach Garou, as even he himself is a good person, and despite everything he's done, Bang, like the hero he is, still sees the best in him, which we see way later on in the manga when Saitama is trying to have a one-on-one with Garou. He, like Silver Fang, tries to reach him, while King is the only one who legit has a one-on-one talk with Saitama about how he needs to not end his path of being a hero with being the strongest. He may be physically the strongest, but he's no by means the strongest hero. And it's crazy how the weakest human, who is seen as the strongest, is the one reality checking the person that no one knows is the strongest, but actually is the strongest. We see in this same season Saitama's strength genuinely inspiring others to do better, like Suiryu, who was a brat who looked down on heroes but now believes he can use his strength to become one. Genos, after having a very intelligent conversation with Saitama, gets the greatest upgrade he's ever gotten and finally manages to possess strength that wouldn't be a burden to Saitama. It actually allowed him to stand up there with the greatest heroes of the world, for example Tatsumaki, a hero in this arc who also had to learn that she can't be the strongest and do everything by herself. Other heroes like Flashy Flash got the biggest reality check he deserved after constantly being obnoxious and boasting that he's the fastest, but this actually allowed him to become better and use this new strength to take on one of the strongest threats in the series right now, that being Ninja Void. And I mean, come on, Moomin Rider, do I even need to say any more examples? You guys understand what I'm getting at. Saitama's had a major impact on other heroes, but was there ever a person that directly challenged Saitama's ideals? Well, there was actually one person who came close, and that man was Garou. You see, Garou's whole story can be explained in its own video, so I'm just going to be noting the important parts for now, just so you guys can get where I'm getting at. Garou was someone who wanted to change the idea of the strongest always being the heroes and how they are not always perfect. Which, over the course of the series, we see how this perspective actually may not be all that wrong. I mean, Garou himself legit was in a similar position to Saitama after the meteor incident, where he was looked at as a way for other heroes to gain more clout. Gatling and the Tank Top brothers may be looked at as heroes, but they themselves are not good people. But because of these characters being the concept of a hero, or what a hero quote-unquote should be, these guys have their own moral high ground. Obviously, in different ways, the Tank Top brothers just glaze Tank Top Master and they believe they're hot shit, but they're not. While Death Gatling believes he ain't shit, but doing stuff like this and doing what he needs to do will finally give him the respect he deserves. But, I mean, they're still put in a very similar situation regardless. However, during his hero hunt, he was shown that not all heroes are like that. For example, with characters like Metal Bat having a similar fighting spirit as himself, but is just simply a kid with a good heart who wants to protect his sister. And we see over the course of his quest, he's specifically trying to fight Saitama, as after having 3 bad altercations with him, he knows that he for some reason is the goal that he has to reach, leading into him legit becoming not even a human anymore, but rather this monster and eventually some kind of avatar as God himself. But despite Garou becoming more of a monster and a threat to society, we still see that morally he is still a good person. We see him saving Taro and even regretting killing him with his passive radiation aura despite God legit possessing his body. Garou is someone who legit rose to the top, but this path led into him becoming something he never wanted to be. He didn't realize him reaching his goal would make him become this. His whole gimmick as well was him copying Saitama's strength and then growing after, meaning by this point he's only trying to copy the actual strongest. He's nothing more than wanting to be what Saitama actually is, and it ends up leading into Garou and Saitama hitting the reset button and giving Garou and himself to start back from scratch. It's also interesting too because Saitama represents exactly what Garou was trying to contradict. However, after the events of the Monster Association, we see that Saitama overall is a way better hero. And we see Saitama proving Garou wrong by not only not killing him and reversing the effects that he's made, and we see Garou going back with Bang and starting his training all over, while Saitama is still trying to become the strongest hero, but now not in the conventional sense. This ending would honestly be bad if these two didn't gain anything from this, but they actually did, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but this ending on reread is not as bad as I remember. And even after the Monster Association, we still have examples of that idea of the strongest changing other characters. For example, in the Psychic Sisters arc, with Tornado now having to face the reality that she's not her. And obviously, the number one thing we can take from this manga is you can still be the strongest, but not be number one in everything. To me, this series does the strongest done right. Oh my god, man. I love One Punch Man! I'm about to get